Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm continuing my review and read through of The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort. As always, you can find all episodes along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show, including Patreon and the merchandise store, at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. As always, support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And all the usual disclaimers for these review shows here. What I'm reading are the words and ideas and thoughts of Charles Fort. That's what I'm sharing. So they may not match your ideas or thoughts or mine and our views on things. So also, I will be mispronouncing things, not intentionally, but it will happen because there are many hard names and words in other languages as well in this book. Also, keep in mind that there may be some things that Fort describes in the book that seem mysterious to him, but that maybe later on, in the many years that came after the books came out, have been explained. So I think that takes care of everything. And thank you all for listening to these shows. Hopefully you all enjoy them. And we'll go from there. So let me get back to the file here. And we'll get back to this. I think I was on the last paragraph of this page. Okay, so it says, as to vegetable substances in quantities so great as to suggest lost cargoes, we have a note in the Intellectual Observer, that's quite the name, 3-468, that upon the 1st of May, 1863, a rain fell at Perpignan, not sure, Perpignan, Perpignan, in quotation marks, bringing down with it a red substance, which proved on examination to be a red meal, as in material, mixed with fine sand. I believe that's like a grain or some kind of plant material. End quotation marks. At various points along the Mediterranean, this substance fell. There is, in Philosophical Transactions 16-281, an account of a seeming cereal, it's the CEREAL, said to have fallen in Wiltshire in 1686. Said that some of the wheat, in quotation marks, fell, in quotation marks here, enclosed in hailstones, end quotation marks. But the writer in Transactions says that he had examined the grains and that they were nothing but seeds of ivy berries dislodged from holes and chinks where birds had hidden them. If birds still hide ivy seeds, and if winds still blow, I don't see why the phenomenon has not repeated in more than 200 years since. Or the red matter in rain at Siena, Italy, May 1830, said by Arago, Arago, to have been vegetable matter. Arago, then that gives a title that I do not know how to say, but issue number 12-468. Somebody should collect data of falls at Siena alone. In the Monthly Weather Review 29-465, a correspondent writes that upon February 16th, 1901, at Paw Paw, Michigan, Michigan. Upon a day that was so calm that his windmill did not run, fell a brown dust that looked like vegetable matter. The editor of the review concludes that this was no widespread fall from a tornado, because it had been reported from nowhere else. Rancidness, putridity, decomposition, a note that has been struck many times. In a positive sense, of course, nothing means anything, or every meaning is continuous with all other meanings, or that all evidences of guilt, for instance, are just as good evidences of innocence. But this condition seems to mean things lying around among the stars a long time. I just want to stop here for a second and bring up the thing I ended last episode with. I said so terribly. In the previous episode here of this review, Fort was talking in a way about spacecraft, possibly, about objects moving through space, having other objects in or on them, and having them be the source of all these various falls of objects throughout the world, throughout time, as far as he was able to record. Anyway, so I just want to point that out because that's amazing, because this is way before the time of, as far as we know, spaceships. So anyway, going on. A horrible disaster in the time of Julius Caesar remains from it not reaching this earth till the time of the Bishop of Cloyne. We leave to later research the discussion of bacterial action and decomposition, and whether bacteria could survive in what we call space, of which we know nothing. So again, we, according to modern science, we do know some things, but again, we still don't know everything. Anyway, Chemical News 35-183. Dr. A.T. McCaddy, not sure, FCS, writes that at London, Ontario, February 24, 1868, in a violent storm, fell, with snow, a dark-colored substance, estimated at 500 tons, over a belt 50 miles by 10 miles. It was examined. Wow, that's quite an amount of material. It was examined under a microscope by Dr. McCaddy, who found it to consist mainly of vegetable matter, in quotation marks, far advanced in decomposition, in quotation marks. The substance was examined by Dr. James Adams of Glasgow, who gave his opinion that it was the remains of cereals. Dr. McCaddy points out that for months before this fall, the ground of Canada had been frozen, so that in this case, a more than ordinarily remote origin has to be thought of. Dr. McCaddy thinks of origin to the south. However, he says, this is mere conjecture. American Journal of Science, 1841-40. That March 24th, 1840, during a thunderstorm at Rajkot, I'm not sure, India, occurred a fall of grain. It was reported by Colonel Sykes of the British Association. The natives were greatly excited because it was grain of a kind unknown to them. Usually comes forward a scientist who knows more of the things that natives know best than the natives know. Again, this is Fort talking here. But it so happens that the usual thing was not done, definitely, in this instance. In quotation marks, the grain was shown to some botanists who did not immediately recognize it, but thought it to be either a spartium or abysia, in quotation marks. And that is the end of that chapter. That's the end of chapter 5, actually. So we'll keep going in a minute here, but this idea of things coming from space, from possibly other worlds, is just fascinating. And that I just love that these going over all these falls. If you think about all of them that he's mentioned here that I've read just so far, that is just dozens, I believe, already. Just so far in this book. So, yeah, just really, really amazing so far. I've really enjoyed this so far. And again, he's talking about possibly what could be thought of as spaceships or as objects in space at the very least. So, moving on to chapter 6, I believe. Yes, chapter 6. Lead, silver, diamonds, glass. They sound like the accursed, but they're not. They're now of the chosen. That is, when they occur in metallic or stony masses that science has recognized as meteorites. We find that resistance is to substances not so mixed or incorporated. Mixed in or incorporated, there you go. Of accursed data, it seems to me that punk is pretty damnable. In the report of the British Association, 1878-376, there is mention of a light chocolate brown substance that has fallen with meteorites. No particulars given. Not another mention anywhere else that I can find. In this English publication, the word punk, in quotation marks, is not used. The substance is called amadou, AMADOU. I suppose if the datum has anywhere been admitted to French publications, the word amadou has been avoided and punk used. That's odd. I never heard of that used in the relation to materials. Let me see here. Also, I have to say, every time I read the word data or datum, it makes me think of Star Trek Next Generation. And there's this episode where this scientist or doctor kept on calling, or wanted to call data, and he actually corrected her. And basically said one is a thing and the other is my name. And so now whenever I read those words, that scene just plays in my mind over and over again. So it's kind of funny, but also it's like, oh, okay, I get it. But it still just plays. Anyway, welcome to my mind. I'm sorry. So it says, or oneness of allness, ALLNES. Scientific works and social registers. A Goldstein who can't get in as Goldstein gets in as Jackson. The fall of sulfur from the sky has been especially repulsive to the modern orthodoxy, largely because of its association with the superstitions or principles of the preceding orthodoxy. Stories of devils, sulfurous exhalations. Several writers have said that they have had this feeling. So the scientific reactionists who have rabidly fought the proceeding because it was the proceeding, and the scientific prudes who, in sheer exclusionism, have held lean hands over pale eyes, denying falls of sulfur. I have many notes upon the sulfurous odor of meteorites, and many notes upon phosphorescence of things that come from externality. Someday I shall look over old stories of demons that have appeared sulfurously upon this earth, with the idea of expressing that we have often had undesirable visitors from other worlds, or that an indication of external derivation is sulfurousness. Just think about that for a second. I'm going to stop there because, again, you could say he's talking about the idea of aliens and of the idea that demons are aliens, or at least alien in that, again, going back to that thing I always say, whenever the word alien comes up, alien just means unknown or unfamiliar. And this is back in the early 1900s. I keep on mentioning that because I think it's important. So he's already thinking about these things based on everything he's looked into, and even things he hasn't looked into yet, but he still has these ideas, which are relatively, I would say, pretty far ahead of his time overall, from what I've heard and read. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the file here. Hope I can find my spot again. Okay, yep, there we go. I expect someday to, wait, let me see here. I expect someday to rationalize demonology, but just at present, we are scarcely far enough advanced to go so far back. So again, he's talking about all these things and connections and possible other explanations for what were called demons in the past, which is just really fascinating. For a circumstantial account of a mass of burning sulfur about the size of a man's fist that fell at Pultusk, Poland, January 30th, 1868, upon a road where it was stamped out by a crowd of villagers. See, not sure what the abbreviations are, but British Association, part of it. 1874-272. The power of the exclusionists lies in that in their stand are combined both modern and archaic systematists. Falls of sandstone and limestone, repulsive to both theologians and scientists. Sandstone and limestone suggest other worlds upon which occur processes like geological processes. But limestone, as a fossiliferous substance, that's a different word, is of course especially of the unchosen. In Science, March 9th, 1888, we read of a block of limestone said to have fallen near Middleburg, Florida. It was exhibited at the Subtropical Exposition at Jacksonville. The writer, in Science, denies that it fell from the sky. His reasoning is, there is no limestone in the sky. I like that. Therefore, this limestone did not fall from the sky. Better reasoning I cannot conceive of, because we see that a final major premise, universal, true, would include all things. That then would leave nothing to reason about. So then that all reasoning must be based upon something not universal, or only a phantom intermediate to the two finalities of nothingness and allness, or negativeness and positiveness. Nature, 1890-2-127. Fall. I'm not even going to try to say this word, in France. June 6th, there's his name. June 6, 1890, of limestone pebbles identified with limestone at Chateau Landon, not sure, or up and down in a whirlwind. But they fell with hail, which in June could not very well be identified with ice from Chateau Landon. Coincidence, perhaps. Upon page 70, Science Gossip, 1887, the editor says, of a stone that was reported to have fallen at Little Lever, England, that a sample had been sent to him. It was sandstone. Therefore, it had not fallen, but had been on the ground in the first place. But upon page 140, Science Gossip, 1887, is an account of, in quotation marks, a large, smooth, water-worn, gritty sandstone pebble, in quotation marks, that had been found in the wood of a full-grown beech tree. Looks to me as if it had fallen red hot and had penetrated the tree with high velocity. But I have never heard of anything falling red hot from a whirlwind. The wood around the sandstone pebble was black, as if charred. There's the next paragraph is pretty big, so I'm not even going to try to read that. But now we're getting into falls of stones and rocks. Just really, that's going to be a lot of fun to get into next. And so just, yeah, this has been amazing. I'm glad we're getting into other objects now, other materials. And it's amazing me how many different types of materials are said to have fallen. I knew about the stones, but I didn't know about all the other materials, all the other things that were kind of identified, sort of, or they were regular things, but that no one knows how they came to be where they were at. So really amazing so far. Thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.